So when we first started out the Trusted Team, we did a piece of content called The Phenomenal Process. And I've talked about what Efficient Portfolio's phenomenal process was and a little bit about the Trusted Team so far. But it started grating on me that essentially what was the phenomenal process for the Trusted Team I'd created before the Trusted Team was even a concept or a business. So I wanted to put some more thought into this, and I've been looking at other businesses and how they communicate the journey that they take their client on. Because if you want your marketing to succeed, and when it's sat in front of your ideal client, your client goes, wow, that's almost like it was written for me. I must do this. I must go through this process. Then what you need to do is you need to be able to communicate how you're going to solve their pains or their worries and their concerns, and how you're going to help them maximize their opportunities and take them on a journey, guide them on a journey to the point where they've got rid of those concerns and they've maximized their opportunities. If you can't communicate that, they will not engage your services. So if you're meeting potential clients and they're not taking you up on the offer, it's because the way you're communicating what you offer is not hitting the mark. And one of the best ways you can do that is by being able to take them on the journey and basically say, this is what you need to do to have peace of mind, to solve the problems that you're worried about, to maximize the opportunities. And here's going to be the stumbling blocks along the way. And by the way, here's how we as a business take you from the pain that you're currently experiencing to the opportunity that you want in the future. And if you can communicate that journey really well and how you're the guide, the best guide, the only person that they would go to take them on that journey, they will almost always say, unless they just can't afford your services, they will almost always then say yes. They won't pick a competitor over you if you get this bit right, because they will see how you are unique in what you do and how you're going to help them solve what it is that they're worried about. And the best example of this not being done well was when we were trying to find a new marketing agency for Efficient Portfolio. And we brought in 3 different agencies. One was a really big, successful agency that, to be honest, we probably wouldn't have brought them in. And they felt like way too big a fish for us. But I cycled and swam with one of the directors. So I was like, can we entertain the idea of you guys being a marketing agency? We picked another local firm, and we picked a kind of middle range firm that somebody had recommended that was based in Nottingham. And we did this meeting. We did the first meeting with each of them. We said, these are the problems with our current marketing. This is what we're trying to get to. We want these leads generated and everything else. And we got to the end of each meeting. And we sat down, Charlotte and I sat down together, and I can't remember, maybe Tom and Helen, who were on the leadership team. I can't remember where in EP's journey that this happened. I was like, we've done 3 initial meetings with 3 marketing agencies, the guys that are supposed to be able to market, and I have absolutely no clue as to what any of them are actually going to do for us. How are they? I've got no concept of the journey they take me on. I've got no concept of how they're going to solve our problems, because all we've done is ramble, and they've given me, like, again, ramblings back, and I'm completely lost. And the reason it became so apparent is because we had very clear, every time we saw a new client or a potential introducer that was potentially going to introduce us to their clients, we had got a really clear way of communicating the journey we could take that client on, how our solution would solve their concerns and maximize their opportunities. And so, and if I could communicate that to a client, and the advisors that work for me could communicate that to clients, and other professionals could communicate that to their clients, it becomes really easy for people to go, you need to see these guys, and this is the journey they're going to take you on, and that's how it solves the problem that you have. And these are marketing agencies, none of them had it. It absolutely amazed me. And I suppose I've gone through the business life cycle before with you guys, and this is sort of that sort of thing, isn't it? It's sort of a roadmap in that you start off as this lifestyle business, and then you kind of become a founder manager, and you're a bit like the toddler crashing around all over the place, and then you're the teenager, and you've still got the founder that's leading the company, and then you get to a proper leadership managed team, but it wouldn't grow without the founder. And then you eventually get to this leadership growth company, and it's kind of the processes that get you up to that. That's the journey you're all trying to get on. And then for older businesses, they end up going into midlife and aging, and as a result, you then use innovation to get you back to this leadership growth business. That could be described as a type of roadmap that we take people on. But actually, probably the one that we've sort of harnessed for most of our time. And like I said, I really only built this because I was writing Entrepreneurial Happiness, and it's much more memorable when you build a framework. It's not really a journey. This is more of a framework. We talked about this in the framework formula. If you want to build intellectual property into books, into courses, anything like that, you want to build it into a framework because it makes it unique to you. It also gives people steps. It makes it more memorable for them. It makes them more memorable for you. So having a framework is a really important piece, but it's more the intellectual piece that how you help people. By the way, the memorable piece is incredibly powerful. Firstly, it makes it more memorable for them, but it also means if my slides go down now and I have to do a 3-hour presentation on how to make your business more profitable, I know what the 4 steps of plan stand for. I can do that without a note, a slide, or anything, because it's in my brain. I know where I go. So it's way more powerful when you do this. And obviously, then what you can do is you build it out, and we've got the acronyms here, and that's kind of the steps that we went through. This also becomes really powerful because if I do a presentation and it's on partnerships, so particularly if I'm speaking at a conference, I might go, oh yeah, and one of the 4 steps within the profitable business plan is partnerships. I do a whole piece on partnerships. They get to the end and they go, what are the other 3 steps? I'm left intrigued. I want to know what the. So having steps is really powerful within this stuff, which we'll come back to. So we had all the profitable business plan, the epic business plan, and the free life business model. But like I said, I was like, the more I've thought about this, the more I think the typical business owner goes through this 3-stage process. They're really restricted by the founder because at the start, everything has to go through the founder. All the new clients are found by the founder. All of the new clients are serviced by the founder. And that is the biggest bottleneck in that business. And then they kind of gradually master that. They build their automated marketing machine. So not all of the marketing is done through the founder. And then they might build a team that allows them to manage that. But they still end up as the time poor founder. And then finally, they kind of master that time balance, work-life balance piece that we talked about earlier on. And then we end up with this business that's still managed by the founder. And that means that actually it's not a very saleable business, because when somebody buys your business, they expect you to leave. And so if you're still managing the business, it's much less valuable if you're required to be there. So what do we do? Well, we kind of like designed different steps to help people on their journey. So we created the Limitless Life Goals and the Limitless Life Workshop and the parts of that. We created the Ideal Client Magnet, which is the course, which has got a lot of the content in it that we've coached here, but it's also available to you guys as members. We've got the AI Masterclass to kind of really upscale that to allow you to do more through AI. We've got the Time Back Business Breakthrough, which has things like the Delegate Compound and that sort of coaching within it. And then finally, the Leadership Growth Businesses, which is all of the coaching like the Leadership Scale Up. And ultimately, if you follow that process, you go from this founder restricted business into the exponential growth business. You go from the time poor founder to the balanced business life, and you go from the founder managed business through to a self-driving business, a business that grows whether you're there or not. And really, that's what the Trusted Team is all about. It's about taking you on that journey so that you can navigate each of those challenges along the way, and you end up with this saleable and scalable business. And that was sort of the thinking process I went through. And then I thought, well, okay, so what have we built? How do we communicate that? And we said, well, okay, Actually, what it looks like really is the Better Future framework today is more like this. And I was like, well, so that's kind of the framework that we help people with. But then it started bugging me that, I mean, it is circular, so you're continually going around the circle, but equally, there should be a destination that we're trying to get people to. We're trying to help them solve those concerns of not having enough clients, not having a good work-life balance, not having a saleable and scalable business, to getting to the point where we have that. So I then started thinking, well, okay, how do we communicate that better? And it kind of ended up with arrows, and I think Charlotte didn't like arrows, Amy did like arrows, but we felt like it was we were transitioning everybody along that journey, whether it was the grow stage, the manage stage, saleable and scalable stage, but also bringing up the health and happiness piece. And then I was like, yeah, but it's still not quite right. So I ended up settling on this, which I shared with you earlier on, which I think is kind of like, so the foundations to success is all the goals, generating strong leads, measuring what matters. Then you have the process-driven business, but also magnifying what the business owner does. And then really to have a truly saleable and scalable business, you've got to build in constant innovation. You've got to have a proper leadership structure, and you've got to have a business built around purpose and values, like Lisa has just said. But all along that journey, yes, we're all trying to get the business piece mastered, but we actually need to have growth in our health, wealth, and happiness. And so that's where kind of the learning lunch stuff comes into aid. Yes.
Is these three steps aligned to, at the bottom you've got your founder, then you've got the founder restricted growth, time poor founder, founder management.
Yes. And so and the reason I'm sharing with you the stages that I've gone through to end up to where I think this is now what I now call the real results roadmap, is because I think this, to me, so this is not a linear thing. You don't only think about innovation when you get to the saleable and scalable piece, because innovation is what drives some of the other stuff. But it actually really, looking back on it, it feels like those are the logical kind of murky steps that we had to go through to get to a business that ultimately I sold that business for what I perceived to be double the market value. And Tom smiles because I think we both agree that we did quite well out of the way that we sold that business. But it was because we'd built the business like this that we could get the results that we got, and we sold it in the way that we did. And so I think this now is a better way of us explaining the journey we take people on, because ultimately the health, wealth, and happiness should be rising throughout. Out of curiosity, just what do people think based on, I know I shared it with you earlier on, but this is the first time I properly explained it. What do people think of that? Yeah, I would agree. Like, you can't only innovate at the end. You can't only build a business on purpose at the end. But to be honest, they're the things that, so let's say we go back to Bhavish's stage of business, brand new business, like, I'm willing to, like, all the conversations we had right at the start, I just need some ideal clients. Forget all of that crazy, lovely purpose shit. I just want clients, because that's what it is like at the start. And and the more conversations I have, the more I see, you're at the ideal client. In fact, the reason that we turn the ideal client magnet into a separate course that people could just buy is so that we want them to get to the point where the trusted team is the next solution. Because at that stage, like if Bhavish hadn't been successful in a previous business, it's unlikely you'd have written the check to join the trusted team right off the bat. So it's kind of like we want to help you get to the point where you've got these other problems, so that then the trusted team is your solution. But I do agree. It's the same with health, wealth, and happiness. So really, these could be all linear arrows, couldn't they? And it's circular as well. So it's a way of me explaining. And then really, how do we do that? Well, we have the trusted team workshops. We have the learning lunch. We have the courses. We have the Kaizen Constant. We have what's going to be the Power Up Days. We have social events, which we're going to go back to doing more of. And we have the network support, so like the WhatsApp group and all of that kind of stuff. That's how we do it. But it's like, what journey do we take people on? So I've been thinking more about this and thinking about, well, what does a great communication of that journey look like for us, but also for other businesses? And And I thought, well, really, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we recognize the problems and identify the problems of the client. Because if that's not out in the open, you don't know what the problem is that you're trying to solve. Then we need to kind of help them envision what that looks like, what that solution looks like. We need to be able to articulate it, and then we need to lead them on that journey. And that's what the real result. Oh shit! Here we go again. This is what happened at midnight last night. Hopefully, it ends as quickly. So how do we recognize and communicate this stuff better to clients? Well, there's a great book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And what he talks about, did somebody say great book? Yeah, great book, isn't it? And what the premise behind this book is essentially what we are constantly trying to do is communicate how our solution is going to take them from this current pain to this current, to the solution that they're looking for. And it's really important to be able to do that we actually know what it is, the pain that really worries them is. We've got to be able to identify what that pain is. I know I'll briefly tell it again because I know some of you won't have heard it, but the story I use with this analogy is when Sir Alex Ferguson was trying to sign Gaza from Newcastle United, and he threw everything at it. He took Sir Bobby Charlton up to try and help sign Gaza from Newcastle, famous Geordie England player, and he was willing to do anything as the richest club in the country to sign the prodigy that was Gaza. But if Gaza never signed for Manchester United, he signed for Spurs. And the reason that he signed for Spurs is because they offered to buy his mum a house in Sunderland. Now, if Manchester United, if Sir Alex Ferguson had known that that was a priority, would he have done it? Absolutely. Why didn't he know? Because he didn't ask the question. So that starting point has got to be, right, what is it that really concerns and upsets and keeps awake the person at night that we're trying to solve here? And the way that you ask that is, if we're sitting here a year from now, I mean, you can change the year time frame, but if we're sitting here a year from now, what's got to have happened for you to be happy with the progress you've made? And specifically, what concerns have you got at the moment that you'd like to have overcome? And what opportunities have you got that you'd like to maximize? Because the deeper you get into that conversation, the better you can then communicate how your solution is going to take them on that journey away from the concerns and towards the opportunities. And if you get into that conversation really well, and that can be on a property, for example, it could be, what's annoying you about this house at the moment that's not giving it, and what would make it amazing? Oh, I'd love this great gym, and yeah, the garage is a bit crap at the moment, and it's a bit hot and sweaty because there's no aircon in there or whatever. Or we want the kitchen doesn't help us do this, but wouldn't it be amazing if we had big dinner parties and all this sort of stuff? That's what you're trying to get. It's just the emotion behind it as opposed to the practicalities of it. And if you do that, you can then understand how you can communicate how your solution is going to be the answer to that. And one of the great things about AI now is, so when I do a coaching call, which is the lead in to people coming into the trusted team, I'll always use otter.ai to record it. I then, after I've got the transcript, I'll go back into Otter and say, what concerns does this person have, and what opportunities does this person have that can be helped by the trusted team? And it'll give me a précis of that. Everything we do in the communication follow-up is now all driven by that information. So it doesn't take long, but it's specifically calling out their pain and their opportunity. So that's really important at the start. And then if we want to think about marketing, one of the things that Donald Miller talks about in the Story brand is that every business, every concept has a villain that it's trying to overthrow. If we think about financial services, the villain you're trying to defeat is HMRC. Yes, that's a good one. That wouldn't have been the one but yes, but that's a good, actually, but it's a great one. It's a poor retirement. It's being ripped off by paying high commissions to somebody that just sells you the thing that pays them best. It's all of these different things. So if we take let's take Tesla as example. The villain is the gas guzzling car. That is, it's But actually, there's different levels to this, and so if a lot of the marketing, if Tesla went about their marketing and they tried to advertise just as, you know, like the external need is, that would be perceived as, I want a new car, therefore we're going to advertise to everyone that wants a new car, they're wasting their time. You've got to market to the internal problem, and it's all about the emotional stuff. So what would Tesla be? Well, it would be, you know, I want an innovative, cool, future-proofed, safe car that's going to gradually get better and better through technology, that's going to, you know, drive itself, all of that sort of stuff. And then there's also, you can take that to another level, an even deeper level, which is this philosophical why you would want that product. And that would be, I want to save the planet through my car purchase. So we want to think about the underlying reason why people are doing doing what they're doing. So we've got to be able to recognize the problem. Next thing we've got to be able to do is help them envision it and help them see how they're going to end up feeling when they get this problem solved. And that's where we kind of, like I said, we need to avoid the external marketing, and we need to be able to show how our solution is the single opportunity for them to solve every problem that they're worried about in relation to, clearly it needs to be in relation to the service that you provide. But the number of times that I would sit down, like when we went through those life planning questions in that first meeting, and they're answering the question thinking, there's no way that a financial advisor can fix that problem. You know, like, I don't know, let's pick an example of not spending enough time with my kids. Well, actually, if you think about that actually can be a financial problem. If you think about it, you know, could we achieve your dream retirement if you went down to working 4 days a week and give you a day a week with your kids? Yeah, actually, with cash flow forecasting, we can demonstrate that we can, and therefore, actually, that is a problem we could solve through financial planning. So if you really know what they are, you can help explain how your solution is going to take them through that. We need to be able to articulate it. And one of the things that we can do really, one of the reasons why I'm going to share with you the efficient portfolio real results roadmap in a minute. I'm not a fan of it anymore because I created it long before I understood the benefit of, or the importance of naming stuff. The Better Future Framework is actually a name I keep going back to and I like. I didn't rename it. Because ultimately it's the framework that's trying to drive you towards a better future. And so that it's about the benefit that you get. So, but the importance of a name is huge. If you can tell somebody the benefit they're going to get through how you name a product. Now, let's say you need more clients in your business. And somebody says, I've got this product, it's guaranteed to give you what you need, and it's called the Ideal Client Guaranteed Solution. You go, yeah, I'll buy that, because it tells me that it's guaranteed, and it tells me it does what I'm looking for. So what we can do is we can name the steps in our process really importantly, and you know, there's a huge power in naming. I mean, Apple was named Apple by Steve Jobs because of its simplicity. He was trying to fight the IBM world and go, I'm going to call it something that's the computer for the masses. It's got to be simple. And that's where the name Apple was born out of. And obviously it stood the test of time. And hopefully you can see some trends in the names that we use within the trusted team. So we've already used the evaluation spotlight. We are evaluating today's situation and we're shining a spotlight on it today. The breakout bucket list is a great, you'll realize that there's a lot of alliterations in the names within the trusted team. It rolls off the tongue better. It sounds better. It's more memorable. So the more we can build alliterations into that naming process, the better. The real results roadmap, guess what? It's an alliteration. So the Fab 5 formula, the efficient wealth management process was our old. I mean, it does what it says it does, but it's not very exciting or sexy. But then it wasn't being targeted at being exciting or sexy. The Better Future framework I like, but I think creating alliterations around words is really important. And really the formula to naming stuff, generally speaking, for most names, you want to start with the, because the turns it into a product. It makes it unique to you. Then you have the pleasure or pain that it solves or releases, and then a product or a process name. So I actually now have a document called the the novel naming nexus, just because of complete piss take out of the alliteration. But I will get Amy to share it with you, because what's really brilliant about this is if you come up with a name that you're now going, I want an alliteration to go on the end, it's just got a whole load, like I've given you a few on the real results roadmap, but this has got way more. So you can go, it's got like one of the benefit words is an R word. I'll just go down to R and go, oh, roadmap, results, report. Report works for that one. That's what we'll do. We're creating a product. And this is where, it's amazing how powerful this is, because what clients will do is they'll look at it and go, you know, I want the real results roadmap. I can't get that anywhere else unless somebody else has created the real results roadmap somewhere else. The only place they can get that is the trusted team. Now, am I the only person that will teach you how to take the client on a journey that you solve? No, it's in that story brand book I told you about a minute ago. But if you want the real results roadmap, you're only getting it from the trusted team. So that creates scarcity. It means that you have a unique solution. So this naming of each step is really, really important. And then finally, if you're going to go super like serious on the naming, the acronym is the way to go, because you can then start to create that intrigue with, oh, he only told me about step 1 and 2. What are steps 3 and 4? And like I said, it's more memorable for them and for you. Now, it used to be that creating acronym-based frameworks and names was actually really quite difficult. So what I would do is I'd go off to the thesaurus and also Scrabble word searcher. I'd find, right, these are the words I've got, but I don't mind swapping this one for this one and this one for this one, putting that into Scrabble Word Finder. Right, okay, now I need to change that to an A. So now go to the thesaurus. What means real but begins with an A? And God, backwards and forwards, and eventually you end up with, now, AI. Honestly, it is a game changer. Like, but I won't ask it for 1. I'll ask it for 10, and I'll go, oh, I really like that, but I don't like that word. So give me 5 A's that are as an alternative to that word. And in no time, you've got intellectual property that is yours, that makes you distinguishable and can communicate the journey you're going to take those people on. So I created a custom GPT to help you with this. It's called Framer Namer. And we'll put this in the follow-up as well. But you can just go to this, give it the framework, the process, the tool that you want to name, and it'll help you name it. It's really simple. So then the final piece of this is how you're going to lead them on this journey. And I've used historically the Lion King as a story analogy, particularly when we're talking about designing your own expert positioning story. And the reason we do that is each story has each good story should have 3 acts. And in Act 2, the guru is guiding the hero through their transformation. Now, when it comes to the client's story and the client's journey, the mistake that a lot of businesses make is that in building their process and trying to communicate the way that they do this, they think that they're the hero. The client is the hero. When we're thinking about this journey that we're leading them down, the client is the hero, and you guys are the guru. You are the guide that's helping them on that journey. It's all about their transformation, not yours. And it's all about how you are uniquely positioned to help lead them on that journey. And if you've got this mapped out really well, it's really then brilliant. It's easy to communicate, like how the opposite of what those marketing firms were doing. But none of them could communicate how they could take me from my pain through to all of the opportunities I wanted to maximize, because nobody had laid it out in a really simple, easy to explain process. So what does that process look like? Well, here's the generic version of that process. So the real results roadmap, and obviously you're going to tailor this to whatever is right for your business, but a very standard process for a service-based business is you're going to start with some sort of strategy call. Low commitment, free probably, but it's a strategy call to understand, and that's where you're asking that question of, if we were sitting here a year from now, looking back, what's going to have happened for you to be happy with the progress you've made? What concerns have you got that you'd like to have overcome, and what opportunity have you got that you would like to have maximized? And then you're going to dive deeper into it. So that, in financial advisor terms, would be the fact-finding bit. Except, personally, I never wanted to do fact-finding in front of the client. We would send them out the form, and then that was the deeper dive on this. This is kind of like your high-level 15-minute kind of conversation. This is the deep dive, really getting to the heart of what's important to them. Then you've got to design them a plan, a strategic plan that goes, yep, we're going to go off and we're going to do this. Now that's going to take time, and it's going to take some commitment. You could have two steps here. So, for example, efficient portfolio, that was a call. Well, I'll come on to that in a minute because I've got that as an example. So you've got your strategic plan. This is where you're going to want to get paid for doing whatever it is you're doing. You've then got to give them the opportunity to discuss that and answer questions and reevaluate it and maybe tweak it and go, yes, I like this bit. No, so the next stage would typically be the planning meeting, and then review program of sorts that would be delivered after that to make sure it continues to work. So the efficient portfolio take on that was we had the financial breakthrough call, which was a half-an-hour conversation with a financial planner. The only job of that call was to book the expiration meeting. The expiration meeting, 90-minute meeting with a financial planner, again, no cost. And the only job of that meeting was to really get to the heart of what concerned them and what were their opportunities, and to get them to buy the efficient. Now, that was typically a £3,000 plan, but it was £3,000 with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you want to kind of go into that guarantee piece, then the content to look at is the risk reversal revolution. There's 8 different risk reversals that you can do, and that's just one example of it. So yes, they're committing to a fee that is scary, but they've got a 100% money-back guarantee if it doesn't end up being what they want it to be. I think if you can't deliver that sort of guarantee, I personally would put an extra step in there to say, here's like the brainstorm stage where it's only a £500 fee and there's a 100% money back guarantee on that. And that's like the quick, and I know we were talking a little bit about this, that might be the stage where you're kind of going, wow, this is amazing. To come back to that terminology that I used earlier, wow, not how. Just give them the exciting bit, but without how they're going to do any of that. If you wanted to add that extra stage, that's how I'd do it. Then you've got the planning meeting where you're answering their questions, explaining the important bits in detail, and then how you look after them thereafter. Now, those names aren't great. They're okay. Yes, did clients want a financial plan? Yes, they wanted kind of peace of mind and a happy retirement and whatever. But so we could have done better with that. But I created that process 15, 16 years ago. But even without the best names, that process allowed us to explain it once to an accountant or a solicitor, and they got it. And as long as they'd got it in front of them, they could explain it to any client they thought would be well served to meet efficient portfolio. It's just incredibly powerful to be able to communicate this stuff clearly. So what I want you to do is to spend a bit of time going through the real results roadmap, which is the revamped version of the profitable business plan, of the phenomenal process. And think about how can you recognize what's really important to the client? How can you help them envision how you're going to solve that problem for them? How do you articulate that in terms of the names that you apply to this process? And then how do you lead them how do you lead them on that journey as the guru, not as and make them the hero of this journey.